members seated at the board table, and we do have one virtually, but I think we're having some issues with our audio stuff, so I think we're working on that at the moment. Commissioner Steele, first time at the board table with the board, and so I want to welcome him. He is on my immediate left. Vice Chair Danny Zek is next to him. Board Attorney Mark Ferguson is on my right, and our Board Secretary Deborah Bremer is on my far right. Today is a chance for the board to spend some time set aside time to discuss and begin the work of looking deeply at the topic of student-facing devices in the classroom. We have guests from teacher training colleges who will discuss how teachers are trained to instruct in the classroom regarding use of technology. We'll hear some screen time policies in other states and hear about some research, kind of just all the things. And we will have lots of time for the board at the end to share our thoughts, have discussion. This is very much, even though we're sitting here and it feels like a regular meeting, this is very much a discussion time. So to that end, I'm going to trust y'all. You do not have to use the hand-raising app. I truly want you to feel free, but please just be respectful. Try not to walk on each other too much. We'll try to sort that out. But I really want us to engage, to deeply think and discuss the topics. And so we do have some presentations, of course, and so we will ask those questions that we have. So I really just want to see us really engaged in the process. That's what we're looking for today. Okay, we will begin. Hopefully they'll get the audio worked out for those virtual. So we will start with an overview by board member Melanie Haas and Vice Chair Zek.
Is it on? Yes, it's on. You can come on up. Uh-oh. Okay. I'm so excited to be doing this in the boardroom. Usually when we have these kind of retreat style things, we're somewhere else, and this will be a little bit different because everybody can hear the presentations today. So thank you all for being here. Sorry to drag you back to Topeka on a Monday. I know that means that some of you won't get to sleep at home tonight, and I just really want to express gratitude for the extra effort that this is, because we know that it's a really big effort. That was kind of the discussion that we kicked off in May, right? So why are we here today? I'm going to lead with our vision. Kansas leads the world in the success of each student. And our mission is to prepare each student for lifelong success through quality academic instruction, rigorous preparation, career training, and character development. Every decision that we make on this topic comes back to these things. So we're here to talk technology, of course, and this is a continuation of that conversation we started last month about one-to-one devices. It's not about being pro-technology or anti-technology. It's about being intentional and evidence-based. Last month, we kicked this off taking a closer look at how Kansas schools are utilizing devices in student learning. Danny and I shared an initial list of considerations that was up on the screen. We had two short lists there, not a menu of things that we can change that menu essentially. They're not final decisions, it's a starting field. So we can add to it, we can take away from it, but just keep that list in mind as you listen today. Some other things to keep in mind: many boards across the country are having a conversation that looks very much like this one. So are legislatures, and we have seen some states with all-out bans on one-to-one in different ways. So we're not alone, and I also don't believe that we are behind. This is the right time to be doing this work. Also, AI is going to come at us next, and it's going to come even faster. So hold on to your hats. One concern that we've heard is that in proposing new restrictions, changes, we may be harming students from certain populations, special education, those who need assistive devices. And so I just want to remind everyone out loud, will this harm students with special needs or medical needs? The answer is no. Federal law, FAPE, which is free appropriate public education, and state law will always be followed, and no policy that this board develops is going to change that. Putting a device in students' hands does not automatically prepare them for a technology-driven world. Specific intentional instruction does. Digital literacy and more, we will need standards for that. So that's something else that we want to be thinking about, is what are the standards that wrap around this. And I want to be sure that we keep parents in mind as we head into this discussion, parents, caregivers, whoever might be sitting with these kiddos every night. Parents can't be partners in their child's learning if they can't see the work. And so whenever learning lives entirely on a device, parents may be sidelined, and that also matters. Leading now is imperative. The legislature acted on cell phones, to be frank, because we didn't. We had an opportunity to issue guidance as a board, and we took a step back and said, we will accept the task force, the Blue Ribbon Task Force on screen time. We said we'll accept their report, but we did not issue it as guidance to districts. And so we need to be cognizant of that as well. We can't let it happen again where we head into January and we see a bill come along that says we're going to all out ban one-to-one devices. And we need to be mindful of what that means. We have districts across the state right now, local school boards, who are constantly thinking about procurement. What does it look like to set aside money for the physical devices? What does it look like to go out and research and dig into curriculum and decide what they're going to bring in that may be digital or may not? So if we were to see an immediate and all-out ban, that would really cut their legs out from under them, and it would also be a waste of taxpayer dollars. So we might be thinking too about what the timeline for this looks like. Obviously, we're not going to get something in place by August. That's right around the corner. So we're looking at something that would potentially go into effect the following August, 2027, for that school year. In the meantime, we have an opportunity to really listen to what our districts need to say to us. A lot of the national momentum on this issue has been driven by parent pressure. And we want to see educators and administrators identifying challenges and solving them themselves. We know it's possible because we've seen them in this room. Teachers and administrators have come before us, and we've heard the stories. Syracuse, McPherson, they need to be partners in any solution that we develop. And then I want you to think about how you're going to listen today. So on your agenda, you'll see a handful of different things. How teacher candidates are trained on technology, research on device use and student outcomes. We'll have an executive session. And then keep in mind that there's going to be time for each of you to say whatever you need to say out loud and share your opinions, your feelings, your wonderings with the board so that we can really have a meaningful conversation. As you listen, you might hold a few questions in mind. Is this actually improving learning? Is it good for students? What is it costing in terms of time and money and opportunity? You don't have to come up with answers today. Just focus on getting the right questions on the record. And then keep in mind that we also have real levers that are available to us. I always think of the 4 key things that the Kansas Supreme Court has said belong to the state board. We've got learning standards, graduation requirements, teacher licensure, and school accreditation. And there are opportunities in every single one of those categories for this board to take action. We're not going to solve or vote on anything today. Just like the Blue Ribbon Task Force on screen time, this is going to take some time, hopefully not too much time. And we should be hearing from districts and collecting data starting now and progressing through this school year with a goal of implementing changes next year. So I think that the goal that we focus on today is clarity on what we need to know next and a commitment to engage directly with districts, parents, and students, and each other. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, Danny Downer's here. and we've been using AI. So this is from Kim Commando, and I loved it. It was perfect. Lazy brain tax. It's happening to me. I go to answer an email and think, I'll have Claude do it. When AI does the thinking, your brain offloads the task and doesn't fully clock back in. That can make you slower, less creative, and more dependent. It's the mental equivalent of always taking the elevator. Your brain is a muscle. Use it. It's called cognitive offloading. Carnegie Mellon, MIT, Oxford, and UCLA found it may take only about 10 minutes of AI help for performance to drop once the help disappears. Research gave people reading and math problems. One group worked normally, the other got help from AI chatbot, then lost access midway through. People who relied on AI performed about 20% worse than those who worked solo from the start. They were nearly twice as likely to skip questions instead of muscling through them. My calculator died. I know no longer math. Don't quit AI, use it differently. So that was really good, and I'm all about also that we have to be more open with parents, and parents can, if a school district is going to use AI, if it's going to use the screens, they better make sure that they let the parents opt their kids in, not opt them out. And make sure that parents understand what the regulations are going to be if we put any regulations in place. And we want, I'm sorry, I'm going to be Debbie Downer. We shame on the local boards because I get phone calls where they tell me they want us to tell them what to do so they don't have to make a decision. So shame on the local boards. I'll put it right on them. And they're actually more important than we are. They're more important than the legislature. The local board elections are the number one, and nobody pays attention to them. It's really important.
It is important.
So,
And I just want to, from your beginning statement, say, I know that Melanie didn't use AI to write her little thing, so I wasn't sure what you said at the beginning.
no, I
just
didn't.
wanna say-
I didn't say she did.
'Cause it
And
almost
that's
sounded
why
like
we
that.
work good together, because we're complete opposites.
We're not complete opposites. We've got a lot here in common.
But I hope everybody, all the board members, all the people here, speak their mind. It's okay if we disagree. That in today's world, I have a real problem with people because you can't have a discussion and disagree and still be friends. Yeah. But I have no problem with that, and I hate to keep saying that, but that's the way it is. And please, we can't get anything done if we don't speak our mind. Whether we agree or not isn't important. So please, anyway, I'll be done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody have a actual question or something? I mean, this is kind of just our leading into, but if you have a comment, feel free. Okay. We'll move into our presentation on teacher training for using device in school. Hello, ma'am.
Hello. Hello, Madam Chair, Commissioner, and members of the board. Thank you very much for letting me come before you. I just have very briefly some information on the higher ed accreditation standards. They are intentionally very general about technology. They actually address it in multiple accreditation standards, but it is very high level. The candidates need to prepare to go wherever they're going to go. Mm-hmm. So are they prepared to use whatever technology the district expects them to use? If it would benefit the individual child learner, if it's appropriate, to use in an ethical manner. Nothing is device specific, nothing is software specific, nothing is amount of time specific. But as they think about their individual license area, what are common tools we use in this area? As they think about planning instruction, what are tools I might need to benefit my students, if it's appropriate to the setting? When they're designing assessment, what tools might they need? And always that it is safe, ethical, and responsible use, and that's how it's promoted. Thinking of their clinical experiences, are they prepared for whatever that clinical location expects them to use? Are they monitored so that they are prepared to adapt to whatever they're going to encounter? And then checking with the completers once they are out and in a position, checking with the employers. Were they prepared for everything you needed them to do? And that's really what I have about the standards. I would like to give you the folks that can tell you about the day-to-day. Okay. So I have Dr. Sarah Schwartfeger and Dr. Cecil Short from Emporia State to tell you about the public institutions. Some feedback. And then Dr. Shane Kirchner online from McPherson College to tell you about the independent institutions.
Wonderful.
And I will turn it over to them.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Sarah Schwartfeger. I'm the Dean of the Teachers College from Emporia State. Thank you so much for having us today. You're going to hear from my colleague, Dr. Short, here in just a little bit. We're here representing the Regent Universities and Washburn. We're going to talk a little bit about the course that our students take in teacher prep. So it's a system-wide transfer course that's generally called either Technology for Educators or Educator Technology course. It's got some different titles. But essentially, we use core outcomes. So there's a group called the KCOG group, the Kansas Core Outcomes Group. This group gets together yearly and reviews different courses that are available in the system-wide transfer for the community colleges as well as the Regent universities. So we have core outcomes in each one of those. This is one of the pieces of information you were provided. It's the single sheet there. It's got the core outcomes for that technology course. So this is a course that is going to be very similar with these exact same core outcomes across all of the community colleges as well as the Regent institutions. What I also provided for you, those core outcomes are built off the ISTE standards, the International Society for Technology and Education standards. So I also provided for you a packet, mine's in color, but it has the student outcomes, the educator outcomes, and the educator leader outcomes, so the standards that we are using as a guide to create this course. So when it talks about students, this is what we are preparing our students to do in the K-12 classrooms. The educators are for our students, so as you walk into the classroom as a teacher, you would be the educator. This is what we expect you to do. And then the educator leaders are our principals, our curriculum leaders, the district leaders, what we expect them to be able to use technology with. So I wanted to give you that background information as you listen to Dr. Cecil Short. He's going to give you some additional information about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, commissioner, and other guests. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about teacher preparation, technology use, and the policies now being considered for Kansas schools. As was mentioned, I am Dr. Cecil Short. I'm an associate professor of secondary education at Emporia State University. Over the past 20 years, I have worked with thousands of teachers in preparing them to serve their students using technology, teachers around the world. And it's with those experiences and understandings that I come before you now. I also come before you as a father. My oldest son just completed his first year in the Kansas public school system, and my youngest is coming in the next couple of months. So we will be invested in the Kansas public school system for the next couple of decades. My central message today is about teacher education and technology is the same one that I give my students semester after semester. Technology policy should not be pro-screen or anti-screen, but it should be pro-learning, pro-child, pro-educator, and pro-family. The question is not simply whether a device is present. The question is whether the method of instruction using that device is developmentally appropriate, instructionally sound, ethically responsible, and clearly tied to a learning purpose. In Kansas educator preparation, decisions about what teacher candidates learn regarding technology are not made casually by individual preference alone. They are grounded in statewide articulation processes and aligned to the recognized professional standards. On October 6, 2023, the Kansas Core Outcome Group for EDU 2030, Technology for Teachers, met to revise the statewide outcomes for this course. I served as one of the faculty co-chairs of that meeting. 20 institutions across the state of Kansas were represented, and all 32 Kansas public institutions approved the learning outcomes from that meeting for adoption. The group also recommended that this group reconvene every 2 years to revise these standards due to the quickly changing technology that our students and our teachers face. Those Kansas outcomes are aligned to the research-based standards from the International Society for Technology and Education. The current outcomes require candidates to do 5 things. 1, assess and evaluate educational technologies. 2, develop lessons across in-person, online, and blended modalities. 3, prepare accessible and equitable materials. 4, identify social, ethical, and legal issues inherent in using technology. And 5, explain digital citizenship through safe, responsible, and positive technology use. Candidates are not just taught to use tools, but to evaluate the strengths, weaknesses, utility, accessibility, ethics, and digital citizenship surrounding such tools. The distinction between the application of tools and the evaluation of tools matters. The ISTE standards themselves emphasize learning, not tools. They frame technology as something used in the service of learning, in the service of student agency, curriculum mapping, school improvement, professional growth, and responsible participation in an increasingly digital world. They identify privacy, data management, digital citizenship, learner variability, accessibility, and evidence-based design as central responsibilities of educators and education leaders. When the board asks who decides what future teachers learn about technology, the answer is faculty decide, but through a structured, higher education process aligned to statewide outcomes, informed by national and international research-based standards, and revised through collective review. The technology learning outcomes for teachers in Kansas are grounded in professional standards, learning sciences, digital citizenship, accessibility, privacy, and research on effective teaching and learning. One topic that we focus on within this technology course is child development and device use. This is an area where policy must be especially careful. Early childhood and elementary students need physical movement. They need social interaction, language-rich environments, hands-on exploration, play, and adult guidance. The World Health Organization recommends no screen time for children younger than 18 months old, and no more than 1 hour a day for 2-year-olds. Even then, they argue that less time is better, and time spent on a screen should be active co-use of technology alongside an adult. For older students, they have a more developmental approach. The American Academy of Pediatrics provides similar guidelines, and just this year shifted their guidelines towards a developmental framework for K-12 students, using what they call the 5 C's: child, content, calm, crowding out, and communication. This framework is useful for educators as well as parents and policymakers. When using technology, we need to ask, who is the child? Recognizing that each child is different. What is the content? Recognizing that not all technology use is created equal. Is the device used to calm or manage behavior, understanding that children need to be equipped with other ways to regulate their emotions? What is being crowded out? Is it sleep, movement, conversation, handwriting, outdoor play, hands-on work, or peer interaction? And how are we as adults communicating with children and families about digital citizenship, balance, and safety? We teach that students can be cognitively engaged, behaviorally engaged, or effectively engaged, or a combination of all three. Technology can support engagement, but it can also fake it. A quiet child clicking through a platform may look behaviorally engaged while being cognitively passive. A noisy group, building, debating, testing, and revising may look chaotic or behaviorally off task while being deeply engaged cognitively. And good teacher preparation helps educators to know the difference. This is why we need to be careful with questions like, how is learning from devices affecting student outcomes? That question puts too much weight on the device itself. In educational technology, we have been having this debate for 30 years, most prominently starting with Clark and Kozma in 1994. I'll summarize their debate for you. In 1994, Clark said, technology not only does not influence learning, but it will never influence learning, and media is neither sufficient nor necessary to learning. But in that same year, Kozma postulated, if we can find a relationship between media and learning, then we will be able to see how technology influences learning. Research has come a long way in the last 32 years, and we now understand how to frame these questions in a way that is much more appropriate. We use a framework called the 3 M's: media, modality, and method. Media are the tools we use for learning. Laptops, tablets, paper books, ebooks, videos, simulations, software, notebooks, poster board, math manipulatives, etc. Modality is the environment in which we teach, in person, online, blended, or hybrid. But method matters most. What is the teacher asking students to do? What kind of thinking is required? What feedback do students receive and how quickly? How are students interacting with content, peers, and their teacher? What evidence of learning is being collected, and how is it informing instruction? I find that often in talking about these things, a violin metaphor helps to explain the differences. We do not blame the violin or the concert hall when the beginning violinist sounds poorly. Nor do we credit the instrument or the venue alone when a professional musician performs beautifully. The quality of the performance depends on the player's methods, and technology is similar. Poor instruction with a device will always be poor instruction. Strong instruction may use a device or paper or discussion or play or direct instruction or manipulatives or all of these things at once. And if used at an appropriate time in an appropriate way, make instruction stronger. We teach candidates to evaluate their use of technology through research frameworks such as PICRAT, P-I-C-R-A-T. PICRAT asks two essential questions. First, what are students doing with technology? Are they passive, interactive, or creative? Second, how does the teacher's use of technology relate to teaching without the technology? Is it replacing non-digital tools? Is it amplifying their methods? Or is it truly transforming what they are capable of as educators? Replacement on this metrics is not necessarily bad. An electronic text is still better than no text. Being read to via technology is still better than not being read to at all. A translated digital resource may make learning accessible to a student who otherwise would be excluded. But replacing physical materials with digital materials should not be mistaken for innovation or effectiveness. Amplification means the tool makes instruction more effective or efficient, such as providing timely feedback, using adaptive practices, providing a virtual tour when a physical field trip is impractical. And transformation means the learning could not reasonably happen without technology, connecting students with experts across the world, creating accessible simulations, collaborating asynchronously with students across time and space, or using data to quickly personalize instruction. Teacher candidates are taught that technology has wonderful affordances, but through technoskepticism, they are also taught that technology can get in the way. Reading on paper often supports comprehension better than reading on a screen because our minds map static three-dimensional spaces much better than the ever-changing two-dimensional space on a screen. Writing notes by hand supports memory better through dual encoding processes, while typing becomes an automated process of recording words quickly. A digital game may motivate some students, but discourage others. A learning platform can produce more data than any educator can ever analyze, but having data is not the same as understanding a child, and having data does not create impactful instruction on its own. Do not mistake these for anti-technology claims. These are simply pro-method claims. Policy that guides educational technologies should not be anti-technology or pro-technology, but rather policy needs to be pro-method, pro-learning, pro-child, pro-educator, and pro-family. I thank you for your time today.
Don't run away.
Don't let him run
I won't.
away.
Okay, no, stay right here.
Oh, you want to ask me questions, right?
Yes.
Go ahead, okay.
Are you, because I think we want to do that before we move on. Yeah, we will have Shane go, but so our brains don't get so full that we can't,
Great.
Yeah.
I think we want to go ahead and have that conversation. So Betty, go ahead.
First of all, thank you. It's such a challenge when, and I just have to do this little prelude, so bear with me. With the pendulum, it's going to swing either to an extreme. Rarely does it focus right in the middle. And that's really been a huge concern. Technology is one of the variables that has an impact on kids. Another variable could be parent involvement, because that is decreasing as well. There are so many other factors, and it kind of concerns me when we jump on, here is the answer. This is the obstacle that's keeping kids from being a genius. The other thing that bothers me, we say in public education, we are preparing students for jobs that we don't know what they are. And then we hear from businesses that you are sending us kids that are unprepared. And if we take away technology, knowing that that's the foundation that businesses operate, then how are we sending kids out prepared to meet these new jobs? So the thing that I love, which I feel that, yes, we do need to curb, we do need to look, a lot of it is on parents. You can have reasonable expectations and guidelines in the buildings, but when they go home or out, we don't control that. And we don't have the connection with families where, from an education standpoint, that we have their trust, that we know what's best for their children. I love your presentation. I don't know if I can get a copy, but it certainly is a sermon I would like to preach.
My dad is a Baptist minister, so I come by it honestly.
Because from a responsible standpoint, I mean, I loved everything that you were saying. So it's not that I have a question. I just am so glad to bring forth the idea that, you know, yeah, there's some responsibility here. Yes, it does pose some problems, but it doesn't cover everything. Thank you, and I hope you share that everywhere you go.
I certainly do. I want to speak to that pendulum swing that you talked about. For the last 2 decades, we've been telling teachers, learn to use technology. It can multiply your efforts in the classroom. And for decades, we heard teachers say, what I'm doing right now works fine. And then the pandemic hit, and they were forced to learn the technology. And then they learned, oh, there's a lot of things I've been doing that this tool can do for me. And now post-pandemic, we've seen that pendulum maybe swing too far, where a lot of teachers, going back to that method, have started to realize there's lots of things that this technology can replace that I've been doing. And I think it's that replacement of, I'll just put them on the screen, as opposed to how can I use the tool to help them learn more, to help them go farther, to help them be more prepared for that job that I don't even know exists yet. And so I think you're right. There is that pendulum swing, and we're seeing a lot of states right now trying to correct. Teachers finally know how to use technology, but we need to pull back. But the tool itself can only do so much. Because if we are creating teachers who post-pandemic are saying, I need to outsource my load to whatever tools I have, then taking away one tool will not change that behavior. Like I tell my students when I teach classroom management, we can't expect behavior to change if the environment producing that behavior doesn't also change. So I think that pendulum swing is a really important thing to keep in mind.
Dennis.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you. This is fun. I'm from an older generation, you know, so.
No.
And Betty's part of it. So, and we're not agreeing on some of these
Okay,
things. So,
I do want to say that we have to be careful about how much discussion and ask questions
right.
that nobody
Okay.
else, you know.
My question is, what does the candidate look like? You've been at this 30 years?
20.
Okay. So what is the swing, the pendulum swing to the type of candidate that's coming into the classroom that you're teaching? How has that changed? I mean, how are the people changed because they're culturalized, because the young ones have known nothing but technology?
Yeah, I'll give you a specific example. I had a science candidate graduate. She's now teaching chemistry and physics, her degrees in biology, but small school, we need you to teach all the sciences. She came back and thanked me for the way that I taught her to use technology. She said, my students have such a wide range of needs that what I have started doing is that piece of classroom instruction that would be generalized instruction, I now record, and the digital me provides that to them. So they can watch that video as many times as they need to. If they have a question on the assignment, they can go back to that video. But now the physical me is freed up to do what the physical me does best. And I can be spontaneous, and I can answer those more advanced questions, those higher order thinking questions. So she has literally cloned herself, right? The digital her takes over a lot of the generalized tasks, so the physical her can meet individual students' needs.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that testimony, because that's the type of thing that really concerns me. Are we losing the personal approach of what makes good teachers? Someone that can really connect, the passion's there, it's not artificial. And I'm hoping that is what teachers are coming out of university with, is you're still the very most important component of this.
Absolutely. And coming out of the pandemic, one of the things we found in talking to teachers was those teachers who thought they were very good teachers because they had the best students in the school realized during the pandemic that maybe those students didn't need them as much. Those gifted students, they just needed curriculum in front of them and they could run with it and learn. And so a lot of our gifted educators came back from the pandemic thinking, maybe my students don't need me as much as I thought they did. Maybe I need to do something differently. And so now it's that idea of, now that I know what my students are capable of, how am I the difference maker to help those students who do need that support?
Okay. We do want to get Dr. Kirchner on here, so I want to be careful that we don't get too encased in this. But Jim?
First of all, thank you. I feel your pain. I'm married to the daughter of a Baptist minister. You gave us so much to think about, and I won't remember it all. Is there any way you can use your digital self to get all that information to us?
Yes,
Watch the meeting all over again later. He did.
we can get that to you.
But I think we can probably get
Yes,
his
we can.
written version as well. Danny? And then Melanie, did you have
Thank you.
they keep using the
The
thing.
thing that you said that concerns me is the digital you, because then we're not going to have the human you.
That's not how the classroom works, right? Everybody has access to the digital me, but how many students can have access to the physical me at a time? Just one. And so now everybody gets the digital me while the physical me can meet each individual student's needs. And what the digital me does is it frees me up to have more one-on-one time with my students.
So the AI you is going to be teaching,
Not
and you won't
AI
be
you.
around anymore.
It's not an AI me. It is, I have recorded myself.
I understand. I'm just giving my
But
2 cents worth.
Yes.
The AI you is going to be teaching pretty soon, and you're not going to be there.
But what if we had an AI tool that was trained to provide feedback like the classroom teacher, so now paras could also help and provide the same kind of support that the trained classroom teacher does, because that teacher's there to guide the process.
And I'm totally against that. So.
Well, and
Because
I'm not pro
there's nothing,
AI
there's,
either.
There's, without humans, we're in deep trouble.
Yeah.
We're in deep trouble.
Yes, and,
Yes.
No one is saying.
And I'm not saying pro or anti-AI either, but I used the Google test 20 years ago when we were asking questions about search engines. We said the same thing. Students who use search engines perform worse on quizzes than students who thought without them. But we wouldn't say today, students don't need to know how to use a search engine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Melanie?
I'll try to be quick, and I'm going to stay on the same topic. This time last year, I graduated my oldest off from high school. I still have one in high school. And if I go back a couple of years, I think it was maybe 7th or 8th or even 9th grade math. Having that digital teacher who, in front of the camera, recorded the video and said, here is how you do the math. And then I remember finding that kid at the table with the computer and YouTube, watching the video again, and sorting out for herself, oh, this is how that works. That was a really interesting moment for me. I was angry that she was on YouTube because it's filled with all of these distractions and horrible advertising. But at the same time, she was getting what she needed at home in that moment after school and was able to go back and kind of relive that lesson and get that attention that she needed. And then if she still had questions, she could walk in the next day, maybe hit them up in the morning and go, okay, I got stuck here. Or, cool, this solved for me, thank you. I guess my question is, at what age or grade is that kind of instruction appropriate? Because I'm going to guess you wouldn't suggest that for a second grader, would you?
So with a lot of that, we leave those choices up to the district. So that is a district decision, a school decision, local control decision as they look at what's appropriate for their students in their building. We look at child development and we have those conversations with them when they're with us. But then once they go out to the schools, then a lot of times those schools are the ones making those decisions.
Right.
So I'm going to press you on
We're
that.
talking about teacher prep here, so.
Yeah.
Well, how do you?
Do you want to say more about that?
Well, I want to ask how much time is spent in the classroom as the teachers are being prepared, so that length of time and the credit hours and all that, how much of that is based on that they're getting, how many credit hours, or what does that look like within their degree program about the technology? So how big is that picture?
Sure. So this course is a 3-hour course. It's a 3-credit-hour course. However, I would say a lot of these same topics and information are embedded into other courses. And all of our students and all of the Regent institutions are out in the schools for an entire semester, and many of our programs are out in the school for a full year. So not only are they getting the information from us and their classes, they are out embedded in the schools for almost an entire academic year.
Right. Okay. I do want to get Dr. Kirchner on board. Do you have a quick question?
Very quick.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. My quick question is, so is the guiding question for the instruction for this course more, is technology necessary for this lesson? And if so, how much? Because to me, as what I've heard, there should be a justification on the part of the individual who's preparing the lesson
Like we heard that.
to be able to frame for everyone, student, parents, school leaders, why technology is useful in that lesson.
Yeah, that's correct. So it is taught through that pro method lens, right? And so we go back to even the final assessment for the course at ESU. I can't speak for the other institutions on their assessments, but our students teach a blended lesson where they do an asynchronous online activity, and then they build on that activity synchronously with their peers. The final evaluation of that is to explain, why was technology essential here? What could you have done if you didn't have the technology? Did it actually amplify and transform what you were doing? What were the affordances, the benefits? And they say things like, well, because we had that digital discussion board, every student had participated in the discussion before coming to class. That's a transformation. That's not something I can do in the beginning of class. If I have 20 people and I say, okay, everybody right now tell me your thoughts. I can't do anything with that data, but now I can. And so they do have to have that evaluation. Again, it goes back to the method. In our course, we actually start by going over to the National Teachers Hall of Fame and looking at technology. We have mini classroom dioramas to show technology from, here's a one-room schoolhouse. Let's talk about the technology of that wood-burning stove and how it transformed what was possible in that one-room schoolhouse. Here's a science classroom in the 90s that got a fridge. How does that change what's possible for a biology teacher when they have a fridge in their room? And so we don't not even just the digital tools that we think of on screen, but all technology. How do those things actually change what is possible? And are those actually amplifying and transforming what students are able to learn?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want, okay, Melanie.
I just want to follow up, and I was trying to figure out how to ask this. I think that the question that matches the one I was trying to ask then is, can you tell me, is there a class or set of classes in which a teacher candidate would receive instruction that would help them make decisions around when the technology is developmentally appropriate?
So in some of these lessons, they do the same thing. They also take a class, they take a developmental psychology class, as well as they take another class on a survey of exceptionality class that talks about development from kindergarten through high school. So there's several different classes, and then it really ties in with those final assessments that they do towards the end of their program that would take all of the information that they've learned and then really focus in on that grade level that they're learning about.
Thank you.
Debbie, I want to make sure, are you hearing us yet? Is she able to hear us yet?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not getting any reaction. Okay. Dr. Kirschner, we want to, would you have Catherine something
I
else?
just wanted to make sure Shane could hear you.
Yes.
Dr. Kirchner, can you hear us okay?
Shane
Tell 'em
Kirshner's
you.
having trouble hearing. I don't know if
Tell them we're ready.
you can hear me there, if I'm supposed to be speaking, but I can't hear anything.
Yes, we are ready to hear from you about technology use in the independent institutions.
Okay, I'll just preface that with saying I heard about 1% of the previous question answer session. And I could hear the professor from Emporia State. So it's a little hard to hear, so I hope you can hear me. With that, I'll get started. Board, it's good to see you again in a different context. I've been there the last several months, and this month I'm on the road. Actually, today helping a daughter move. So it's a nice little break on a humid day to be in air conditioning and talking to you as opposed to lifting heavy things for a few minutes. I have little to add to the conversation you've already heard other than the perspective from the private colleges. So as the CapCode president, we are the organization of all the private colleges in the state of Kansas and our teacher prep programs. The way we operate, we have a good deal of anonymity in creating our own courses. That being said, like Emporia State and the Regent schools, we all rely on the CAPE standards that do require technology. We all follow the ISTE standards that you've heard about earlier. So a lot of that is all very similar in that aspect. I think what I heard earlier, and I think what we need to keep in mind as we form this discussion, is the partnership that the higher ed institutions will have with the board and the families and the districts as we put all of this together. But I think what becomes really important is a sense of balance. As I ponder what we do at McPherson College, for example, we're right there with McPherson Middle School, which has national attention for removing to the one-to-one program, as you know about, I'm sure. But we look at that balance. We offer introduction to special education courses in all of our institutions. So we talk about adaptive technology that's needed for the special needs population. We have educational technology classes or instructional technology classes similar to what you just heard a presentation on from Emporia State. We have developmental psychology classes. We have educational psychology classes. These are all the core classes that all of our institutions offer. And we take all of those elements and put them together and we end up with that product. At McPherson College and about half of the private colleges, we all use what is called the Kansas Teacher Work Sample. It's a tool we jointly created, and about, again, 8 or 10 of us use that as our teacher work sample, which is required as for licensure in the state of Kansas. It's one of the KSDE mandates that we have to make sure our students complete. There are elements of ethical use of technology on that. We require that they do use technology, but we also require that they use it appropriately and properly. And frankly, we know from experience that our PE teachers struggle with using technology. We also require our PE teachers to include a reading strategy, which is a big ask for a PE teacher sometimes. But we are very conscious to make sure that all of our graduates are intentionally using technology reading. So that is part of that rubric that we score them on. In addition to the work sample, we have a joint evaluation tool that we use for student teaching. So this is where this all culminates when you take the educational psychology class, the technology class, the special needs class, the content specific methods classes, and then we see it culminate in practice in the student teaching experience. And again, using those common tools across many of our institutions, we know that that's important to make sure they can use those, but they, as previously stated by Emporia State folks, that they use them correctly and ethically. So again, I think you see those embedded in the ISD standards, not just use technology, but use it the right way, use it for communication and all those other tools. I think I'll leave it at that because you had a very good presentation from Emporia State. Just echo that the privates do. We don't have the same exact consortium, but the reason we have our CapCode meetings is so that we can share across the institutions, and then we share topics such as this on a regular basis. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a mic they can hear better than another? Okay. The one. So Catherine, if you want to try telling him, you can speak, just telling him we're good.
All right,
Does
thank you
anybody
very
have
much,
any
Shane.
questions? And we can let
Checking
Catherine
for any
just help us with-
questions.
Want to add anything to, I know he pretty much was echoing like he said. And I do remember, we do have that teacher work sample. That's they have to have that for the licensure. So sounds like, at least we know across the privates, they're doing very much the same thing. So we can feel like there's that across the board, no matter where they're getting their education. Okay. Please tell him
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't think we have any further questions for you.
Okay, I didn't hear any of that, so other than I have no more questions. for
Okay.
you. So-
Yeah, no more questions. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I wonder if Debbie would just listen to the live stream versus trying to is there a way to do both almost so she can at least hear us? Because we can hear them when they speak. So I don't know. That's frustrating. I'm sorry. Technology. Are we talking about tech today? Well, that was really, really interesting and really grateful for all the information. And like was asked if we can get your written, what you said, I think we have it. So that'll be great because I know some of us prefer paper and be able to print that and look at it. Let's go ahead and take a quick break and we will be back in 10. Okay, really, are we good? Okay, back from break. We are going to now hear from Commissioner Steele, who I must point out is on week 2 officially.
You didn't have to say that.
I'm just saying, last Monday was his official first day, and I'm very excited for what he's bringing to all of us. So this is some research on what states are doing, basically. Other states,
Yep.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Peyton's going to do the real heavy lifting on the research. It will be based on what states have passed, other than our state will look at something that was introduced. So we aren't going to show you everything that's been introduced, but Peyton will give us what has passed. I just want to speak a little bit, if I can. First of all, thanks for the working group. I think it's very noble to work in session, and Danny, for the invite to let's be critical thinkers and consumers and push each other. And in part, as a new commissioner, it feels like a training wheels day, right? Like get ready before the big day. So that it's a win-win for all of us. I just want to say a little bit on the vision that we'll continue to talk about in Kansas. You know, in my first year of teaching, it's just overwhelming. There's just so many things you can do. And I remember my first year of teaching having a one-to-one class set. And it was just, I look back and I just want to give myself a good pat on the back and be like, so what I mean by that is, where do we want our teachers and what do we want our teachers to be doing? I don't think we ever want to lose step, as we want every student to have quality instruction. And that is the focus. Now, this is not to placate our efforts here. We need safeguards in place, and we need to reorient ourselves into educational technology. But also, the best thing we can do for our students is focus on quality instruction. And I believe that as we focus on quality instruction and we build a system of supports, then we will be left over with a lot of things that don't fit. And those things can be sold or put in different places. And so quality instruction really is a big piece to this. Do we have standards that we want our students to know at the right grade level so that we can focus in this space, and it will help orient tech. But if we focus tech first, I think that's where and no one said that, but that's when we end up just too much on our plate. Am I trying to figure out this app and we never want instruction to be missed there. I know we've had a little bit of a few intros, but I do have to say some of these things. As we consider a place for technology in our schools, can we consider a few things? One is, I'm the worst at code switching, where I start a conversation talking about one thing, and I just start talking about another without admitting it. And I think one of the things here is the difference between entertainment tech versus research-based evidence technology, right? Sometimes I start talking to anyone, board members, family members, children, and I start ranting, and I realize I'm actually talking more about TikTok than I am about this purpose-built tool. So I do think it is very helpful and important to us in these moments to say, when the emotions go, are we talking about the same thing? The second thing is on being intentional. To say, are I pro or anti? I really like this pro learning, and then there's tools. But when we're talking about this kind of pro or anti ed tech, I don't know what ed tech is anymore. My kid was on ed tech, and I looked and I was like, this is games. This is not anything. And so I do think it's important, if we're asking ourselves, does ed tech work? I think that's akin to saying, does food work? And the answer is, well, it depends what you're eating. So we need to be very clear and very intentional of what do we mean. So I'm going to try to do a better job at stop trying to talk about ed tech and talk about purpose-built evidence-based tools versus classroom apps and I think that can help us start making some needed changes. I think there are some ways we have to pull back in advance, but there is a big difference between a purpose-built evidence-based tool that has a dosage connected to it versus just anything that's allowed to label itself as ed tech. I label myself as really strong. But there is an evidence test to determine if that is true, and we should look at the evidence. And then expect quality. I talked a little bit about this, but we want to hold strong to the academic standards that we want. And as we do that, we will decide and have a better place to say, it's kind of pedagogy first. What do we want in our classrooms? is there a purpose-built tool that can help us with that? And if not, great, we made that choice really easy. And then the other thing is we are thinking about levers. I think Melanie's been very thoughtful, and so is Danny, about levers and authority and all these things. Timer is one of those pieces, right? There are other levers I think we can look at, and we will have more discussion on that later, whether that's outcomes, whether that's a few thoughts there. So we'll pull together some what are some levers that we can look at, and how and when do we want timer to be a lever. So without further ado, Peyton will come forward here and will share with us what has passed through legislatures and what specifically passed. Peyton.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for continuing to invite me back. I am going to just provide a little bit of a national overview of what's happening in other states, as well as give a pretty high-level summary of the bill that was introduced in the Kansas legislature this past session. I know that some of you, I won't name names, will say, Peyton, I don't care what's happening in other states. I care about Kansas. And I will push back on you on that. I do think that there is some important national context and some states that have started to do things that we can see in what context might these things work or not work. Are there places where we can, states that are ahead of us that we can see how things go, but kind of as we follow in their footsteps. So just to start kind of big, 40 states across the country have passed at least some form of student data privacy law that applies to educational technology vendors. Kansas is in that 40. The Kansas Student Data Privacy Act applies both to districts, and then any vendor that would have access to student data would also fall under the Student Data Privacy Act. This past legislative session, at least 16 states introduced legislation to reevaluate or limit or vet differently educational technology in public schools. Again, Kansas was one of those states. While 16 states had introduced legislation, very few actually went forward. So I am going to go through a couple of the states that had things passed this past session. Virginia and Maine are a little bit different than what Kansas has been looking at so far, but they did bring this up during their past session, so I'll touch on it a little bit. In Virginia, this began as legislation to limit classroom screen time. Over the course of the session, it took a pretty big shift in what the legislation actually says. They are focused mostly on things like digital citizenship, requiring districts to provide instruction about time spent using electronic devices, the addictive potential of utilizing electronic devices. And so they passed a law that requires districts to give that type of instruction to students. In Maine, they focus on research, so they have directed their Institute of Education Policy Research to conduct a comprehensive study on how technology is being used in classrooms. Alabama is another one that did pass a law, although again a little bit different than what Kansas is looking at. They specifically are talking about early childhood, so ages 0 to 5, which they include kindergarten as part of that, but is mostly focused on the preschool and daycare ages for students. They are requiring standards to be created for ages 0 to 5 and do not allow students ages 0 to 2 to use screens. They would not allow students ages 0 to 2 to use screens. But they will be required to establish guidelines for limited screen time for students ages 0 to 5.
under two, which is, I think is a really good idea, would only apply to those people all those kids that were in a public.
A state licensed child care facility is how they write it.
They can't do that for just parents in general, you know.
Utah is probably the best example of kind of what we've been talking about at the Kansas level. They actually are the only state that has really passed a law that is prescriptive about limiting screen time at different grade levels. So they are requiring the State Board of Education to create model policies with age-based limits on screen exposure in classrooms. For K through 3, all screen time would be prohibited except for computer science standards or preparation and taking state-mandated assessments. Grades 4 through 6 is a little bit more lenient. They are focusing on balanced instructional technology with teacher-led, print-based analog methods. And then districts must ensure that technology meets whatever the state board sets as their standards for classroom use for each of those grade levels. Tennessee does not prohibit any use for any particular ages, but they do require districts to develop policies for age-appropriate instructional use of devices, specifically in kindergarten through 5th grade. They specify that the policies must prioritize in-person teacher-led instruction on non-electronic materials, limit the use of school-issued digital devices to purposes with a clear educational benefit, and prohibit students from accessing social media on school internet during instructional hours. So while they do not focus as much on time limits, they do have these qualifications for what a district's policy needs to include. And if there aren't any questions about other states, I'll move on to the Kansas Senate bill.
Anybody, any comments? Yeah, Danny?
You did have some decent things from other states. Sorry.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, great. So that is a really brief, pretty high-level overview of what's going on around the country. Obviously, there are still some legislatures that are still in session, so some of this could potentially change as the year goes on. But as of now, those are the major states that have passed policies related to screens in schools. Kansas introduced Senate Bill 350 this past legislative session. It did not pass, but I'll go over just kind of what that would have entailed for districts in Kansas had it
Peyton, sorry
passed.
to interrupt. Did it come out of committee at all?
I don't believe so.
Okay, no committee, okay. And I want to ask real quick, I apologize. Rayleigh, do we have Debbie on? Did we lose her? I couldn't hear. She's good? Okay, because I can't see her, so I couldn't decide. Okay, thank you.
For kindergarten through 5, Kansas Senate Bill 350 would have said students shall not use any digital devices, that all instruction should be print-based and hands-on, all tests and assessments shall be conducted using printed materials. That also would have included Kansas state assessments. 6 through 8, sorry, do you want me to pause?
I just wanted to say that again for the record. We don't have a pencil and paper test for Kansas state assessments. It does not exist. I don't suppose you know how long it would take to create that.
I do not.
Thank you.
Yeah. For grades 6 through 8, the law would have not allowed one-to-one devices, so they would have allowed things like classroom sets to be used, but not an individual device assigned to a particular student to take home at the end of the day. it would have required being used for only instructional purposes and restrict access to non-instructional content. It also said no online or digital textbooks would have been permitted, and that any device use should have been limited to an hour per day.
Okay. Betty, do you want to go ahead and jump in here?
Yeah, I do, and I probably should have asked this when you were covering the states, because one of the things that's very, very concerning to me, when we get the feedback from what do you see problematic with these devices? What's frequently reported is from the entertainment perspective, those sites that students tend to visit, the pushback has not been, well, they learn ABC. It's just that they have access to all of this other outside chatter that really is not conducive to learning. With that being given, has any of the states ever looked at devices that can be where these ads, where the kids can't access these adult sites? I see most of the pressure being put on families and kids. But I still have yet to hear of anyone initiating a move where if this device is for schools, and maybe because it is the internet, but I do know that there are some filters that can be put in place. Do you know if any state had ever looked at, if we separate the entertainment from the educational part of it, and just ask the question, does it meet educational guidelines? Is this helping? And get a response from that perspective. Because right now, it's all one big ball. They are able to access inappropriate sites. The entertainment is pulling them in. It's tying them to this technology. If every time you picked up this handheld device, all you could get is an algebra question or a scientific question, it's like, would they really be on it that much? Do you know if any of those states have ever looked at devices in that manner and looked at legislation where we can go after these people that put all of this stuff on here? I mean, if I'm doing something on my phone, an ad pops up, and it's because of the money. So I say all of that to try to get back to my question. Has anyone ever made that distinction between keeping it educational only and what impact that would have?
I don't know if any of them get to the level of specificity that I think you're describing, but Tennessee is an example where one of the policy requirements is that it has to be for instructional use. Now, how you would define instructional use, or how one district compared to another is seeing instructional use, I think that could differ, and maybe that's where your specificity would probably come in. But I don't know that any states have really done it as detailed as what you just described.
Can I join you? Yeah. I also have not noticed at a state level, but we do know some districts nationally have much more, a deeper working knowledge of this, because districts are the ones that are putting up the firewalls and all other things. So perhaps you could request of us to take a scan at some of the districts across the nation and see how they are addressing those kind of things. So again, I wouldn't say I don't know on a state level, but we've had many districts try to address this.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
I want to wait till the whole discussion of 350 is done, and then I have a question.
Okay.
No, I have a comment.
Did you have any more?
Well, I'm not sure if you could see, but it did say that Debbie was raising her hand.
Oh, okay. Debbie, go ahead.
Thank you. I had to figure out how to use that microphone. Yeah, I'm old. anyway, I liked what Betty was asking. And I know we're talking about devices in classrooms, but it kind of just reminded me about that Trevor project that we have applications or websites or outside vendors, if you will, that are being invited into the school website. So not even just necessarily the one-on-one devices, although I expect those one-on-one devices do have access to the school website as well. And so when my mind goes to the Trevor project, I do wonder it's kind of along the lines of what Betty was saying is, are we vetting out these outside people that are getting access to these kids? And since I'm on here and I probably won't raise my hand terrible much, I agree with you too, Danny, the opt-in. That's it.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, I think that's definitely something in the mix of all of that. So I appreciate that, Debbie. Okay.
One more slide and then I'll be done. Just to finish out Kansas Bill 350, grades 9 through 12 would be limited to an hour and a half per day for instructional purposes only, and it would limit homework time needed for devices to an hour per day. That would also require age-appropriate media literacy, and then some particular stipulations if a district is going to issue one-to-one devices, such as disabling the camera, blocking access to social media, and settings that would allow parents to track screen time. In all grades, the law would have required parent opt-out, either for one-to-one, the issuance of a digital device, any requirement that a student would take the device home, or the use of devices for standardized testing or assessments. That would have applied to any grade. So, however, in that particular grade band, devices were allowed to be used. It did require parent opt-out as well.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
I see multiple unintended consequences that are extremely serious. And I'm going to go back to what Melanie said at the beginning. We had a bill about cell phone use because we didn't act. The Emergency Safety Intervention Task Force was put together because the State Board of Education had the opportunity but didn't act. The Dyslexia Task Force was put together because the State Board of Education had and I was here, so I'm partially responsible for that, and didn't act. This is unworkable. Mm-hmm. And unless we act, and I'm not criticizing, well, I sort of am, but the fact is that right now, the relationship between the Kansas legislature and the State Board of Education and the general education community is dysfunctional. We don't trust them. They don't trust us. So the bigger issue is that we need to be proactive in trying to develop better relationships. But the bottom line is we need to come up with something that works and have something ready to go, or something like this, which I consider horrible, will be thrust upon us, and that is not workable. One other comment, going back to opt-in and opt-out, being the superintendent of schools in rural and poverty-stricken areas, it's extremely difficult to communicate with a lot of parents. And and I'm not saying anybody's a bad parent. Nobody gets up in the morning to say, I'm going to be a bad parent today. Right. But other things intrude, like I've got to make sure that my kids can eat. Yeah. And that's a real issue. So I find opting in to be very difficult because of the difficulty in communicating with parents that have all sorts of other competing things. So I will disagree with my colleagues about opt-out.
Yeah, the opt-out being the better version is what you're saying. Yeah, I hear you. Anybody else? Wow, we're tracking really well, you guys. Good job. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you for that, Peyton. That was really good information with the other states and that overview. Dennis made a request to me before we bring up our next presentation from Dr. Conrad, who I'm assuming is in the house somewhere. So I can't see. There he is. So Dennis wanted to read something because he's old and so I told him this, I think, was the right space to do that. So go ahead, sir.
Well, this may involve some entertainment, but I think it's significant. It does speak to what we're looking at, and being from Yoder, Kansas, I've had this personal experience. So this comes from a journal about classical education out of Idaho, and I'll just put a little plug in. I think that's a good way to look at education is from a classical standpoint. But I just want to read this because this caught my attention because I've experienced this. Some weeks ago, I was in Amish country. As I was passing through the autumnal landscapes of half-harvested cornfields and rolling plains, I noticed a young girl driving a horse and wagon and loading corn stalks on a byre, whatever that is. No loud combine, no tractors in sight, just a picture of life without the machine. Later, as I was driving, I was confronted with a bit of traffic, which seemed strange in the country. I noticed cars veering into my lane and zooming around what only appeared to be a stalled vehicle, but it was not an accident. It was simply a bearded Amish gentleman driving his horse and buggy down the road with an untroubled smile on his face. As more and more cars lined up behind him, eager to pass when they got the chance, I was reminded of a line from Willa Cather's Death Comes for the Archbishop. Quote, "Men travel faster now, but I do not know if they go to better things." End of quote. There is perhaps no better line to describe the modern world and its contradictory intoxication with technological progress. This contradiction can best be seen in the recent acceleration of AI technology. As Paul Kingsnorth has said, quote, "Even though most AI developers are unsure about where it is heading, many of them seem to be actively frightened of what is happening even as they make it happen."
Right.
So I'll turn it over to you, Doctor.
Follow that.
And with that, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, board members, Commissioner, my name is Dr. Zachary Conrad. I officially start July 1 with the Kansas State Department of Education, and so I see this as
Your
a
training
dry
wheels
run.
opportunity as well.
Training wheels. So please extend some grace as we are getting off the ground. I'd like to do two things today. One, I'd like to introduce myself a little better through these slides. And two, I'd like to be able to provide more information about how we might be able to help as a division or as an agency to help you guys take action. We hear that, and I want to make sure that we are a resource in order for you guys to have the data and the information you need to be able to craft effective policy. And so with that, I want to just reach back to some of my experience to better introduce myself, but tying it to this topic at hand. I was an elementary classroom teacher. 5th grade, that was as low as I could go, but I also did not love middle school. They are a different group of students in middle school, but I very much enjoyed 5th grade. I think I could have gone to 4th grade, but I really enjoyed 5th grade. I started at a time period where we did have technology. We did not have one-to-one devices, but there was various technology that we used in the classroom. Some was fun and engaging. We had little clickers so that kids could take quizzes, live. We could see the results, and that was a lot of fun. I was one of the ones that got chosen for a smart board in my classroom. I used that one poorly. I myself didn't fully appreciate or understand how to use it, and it really just was a dry erase board, really, at the end of the day. But through that, I was able to really see how technology can be used in a classroom, and that experience has stayed with me. I've also had a couple positions now in a few different districts: Lawrence Public Schools, USD 497, and most recently and currently actually, USD 500, Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. There I have been able to lead both the research and evaluation departments and the technology departments. This has been fascinating as this was in Lawrence before COVID. And so we got to see how it was implemented before, and then we also got to see what changes happened after COVID, during COVID, going one-to-one, what online looked like, what all of the explosion of programs became afterwards. And there were some systematic things that I saw in that process where one-to-one was necessary at some points and where we had a lot of money to spend because we had an influx. We also saw that students had gaps developing during that time period, and we needed to catch students up. And so we were looking for solutions and how to achieve this. And so a lot of things kind of converged after COVID to kind of create the environment that we're in today. And so with that experience, we've also seen some scaling back now that money is going away, and we've had to make decisions on what stays and what goes. And so we've worked through that through research and evaluation. And so I have some experience there of understanding the technical difficulties and evaluating what's effective and what's not effective. So I did want to mention that and bring that to this conversation. Now, we're also creating a new division here at KSDE that specifically pulls some of these elements together, where we are talking about accountability together, research and evaluation, and our technology departments together. Now, I am a firm believer that data is meaningless until we put a narrative around it. And so an example that I often use with individuals is I can go home and I can tell my parents, my mom, I can tell her I scored a 10. I mean, I'm not sure what that means. And so she says, "Good job." And I say, "Well, it was out of 100, Mom." She says, "Oh, not so good of a job." Yeah, but I'm a 5th grader and it was an 8th grade test." "Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's okay." "It was worse than the class." Oh, shoot. Right? That number 10 never changed throughout that entire narrative. Right? But the context I put around it does matter. And so the reason that I believe that these two things, these departments need to come together is that when we want to tell a narrative about data, we got to know specific things. We got to know how we collect that data, from who and where it's stored. We need to be, and that's really the technology side of things. We need to be able to ingest this data to be able to tell this narrative. Then we need a point in there where technology helps research display this data so that we can check to make sure that it's clean, that we collected the right variables and all of those things. And then we need our research and evaluation team to do the analysis of it so that we can tell the appropriate story, right? We don't want to come to the table and just say we scored a 10. We need to be able to put the narrative around it. And these two departments really working in unison help make sure that the data is coming in appropriately, stored appropriately, with the appropriate data, so that we can tell that appropriate narrative. And so with that, I want to be able to say that you've heard some qualitative stuff in there, my lived experience in these districts, to be able to do this work. But we are setting up the system now to be able to get you what you need to make those decisions, to take action. And so with this, I want you to know that this is how we're set up. This is what we want to do, is provide you guys with that narrative, with that data. And so I really, since I'm new, and I'll be new again in July, so I have a little time, I want to be able to field your questions, things that are going to help you answer the policy requirements. And so what do you need from us? What information can we gather so that you have the ability to do good policy work? And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys for questions and or suggestions on what we can gather to help you guys make that decision.
Thank you. So, you're new, and this is going to be a new question for me. So we're matching up here. What concerns me, though, isn't necessarily from an internal perspective, because earlier you might have heard this was done because we didn't move. Legislature made a decision because we didn't move. And it's a problem for me in the sense that it's not that we weren't moving fast enough for them, and we weren't moving because there was still additional information that was needed in order to vet which direction. So where I'm tracking this is, while it's good to have all of this that will help us, timeliness is probably the biggest factor. I am resentful that we weren't moving fast enough and that they moved too fast. You know, we were a little slow, they were too fast, because there are factors that wasn't taken into consideration when this decision was made. And I think it's created more of a problem for districts. I think when we look at our role as a state board, which is general oversight and guidance, it wasn't mandated. It was making recommendations where we need, and when I look around at this current board, all of us want to have valuable information to make an informed decision. And my speed may be a little quicker or a little slower than others, but at the end of the day, it's the 10 of us coming together and making a decision. So where am I going with this? I'd like to know, maybe more from an external perspective, how this will help to say, look, this decision, I'm trying to stay close to this decision has to agree with, well, the majority, I won't say 10, but the majority. And as we request people to come forth, bring us information, the same way the legislature vets things, and it's on their time scale, how will this help them understand that, or get this message across, that some decisions you really do need to take some time and vet? Is that a part of this? Is that external to this? Jump in.
I'd like to address it in two ways. First, what we can help you with is if you have certain data points that you'd like to collect. Let's say that you want to do a survey of superintendents or of teachers to get that information. We can give you a timeline of when we can collect it, when the best time is to collect it, when we can analyze it, when you can expect to receive it, right? So we can map out some timelines of data points to help you better understand, if I got to make a decision, but I need this data point to make the decision, what's that timeline look like? The second point, so hopefully that can help you. The second point is that you're right. The legislature may be on a different timetable. And to Jim's point earlier, it really is that relationship with the legislature to help them understand we are working on this. Now, they're their own legislative body. They'll do whatever. But it's really working with Commissioner Steele and understanding our relationship there and how we can explain to them our timeline, what we're working on, and hopefully having that relationship to afford us the space to do our work.
That kind of helps because there was a vagueness for me in that I had made the assumption that there was going to be that building of that external relationship with this area, that legislature would be kind of a priority of where they are seeing these concrete steps. You know, it's not just sitting around, but some concrete things being presented so that this board can make an informed decision. But your role then would basically stay internal, where it's us, and then it would fall on the new commissioner to communicate that with legislature and to make sure that they understand that this is being taken under serious consideration. I mean, is that actually the way you're seeing this operate?
I think in a great deal, but I also think it needs to involve state board members as well, so that we're fully coming to the table with the commissioner as much as we can. Because as the elected body, speaking to an elected body, I think those conversations, I really am hopeful. We're in a tough time with the elections now and everything. I mean, it really shortens up our time frame in reality of knowing what all will be in place come November.
And I guess what, yeah, I mean, we got that coming up. But moving forward, let's just say that
yes,
this
in the
is,
future. Yeah.
Then my concern, again, is putting in place some steps where we're going to turn over a new leaf, where who do we work with, and understand that we might not be just that quick, but there's different opinions. And most of the time when we do come together, it's because those questions that we had have been answered, not necessarily that we'll vote any different, but those questions that we've had have been answered. We've looked at every aspect possible, and I just want to be sure that what we're doing is going to support a foundation where we're not making a decision just like this just to keep you from making a decision.
Right.
Because then we're doing just as badly as you, which is making an ill-informed decision. So I'm just trying to grasp or be sure that that's an area that we cover. Thank you for your indulgence on that.
Absolutely. Danny?
Thank you. So since your accountability, so school districts do need to be open with opt-out, because a lot of parents don't even know that they can opt out of technology. They can opt out of computer assessments. And that's why I'm an opt-in guy, because that forces them to get a hold. And I understand that it's hard to get a hold of, but that's the excuse that we hear, is you can't get a hold of the parents. That's an excuse.
I disagree.
And I guess with technology, I think it's a lot easier to get a hold of. So I'm an you're the accountability guy. So the school districts make it hard when you go to the websites and start looking about, even at our state website, and start looking at things, you can't find on there where you can opt out. And if somebody, and I'll go back to, we need to have assessments for third graders where they have to actually think about what that is on a piece of paper, not just hit the computer button.
Jim?
27 years ago, I was a superintendent in Kansas, and I was an early adopter and on one-to-one initiatives. And all the things that have been said about how foolish that was, I'm guilty. Because we implemented as this is the panacea that's going to create everything. And I bought into that, and we went full blast. And we got way over our skis. So I recognize that it's very important now to completely reevaluate to see, because some of that was harmful. Now, we improved performance based on the test, but I'm not sure that that's the reason. You know, there are all sorts of reasons. But you ask about what data we need. I would like to know from people that are a lot smarter than I am, is there appropriate usage for technology in early elementary school? Is there, and if there is, what is it? And what is not appropriate? And I would like to have that information at all grade levels, because we need to identify what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And if we put policies together, we need that information to make informed decisions.
I will say that I did put together some research that we've looked at, and one of the issues that was touched on before was really separating out usage, what screens. So some of the research is going to address screen type, age type. Some are going to control for variables such as poverty or learning a language, right? And some of those different demographics. So the research, educational tool versus non-educational tool. And so the research really is just growing. It's young right now, in my opinion. And we're, because of all of these separate little things that we have to control for, all the different variables that we're looking at. And so finding controlled studies that are not sponsored by ed tech companies are young still, right? And so sometimes we might come across, we don't have specifics on saying this actually works. Sometimes it actually works if you use it in a very specific manner. Right. Implementation is not the same, right? That varies across. So I can say, yes, this program at kindergarten works if it's implemented this way, and we just don't see implementation that matches that, right? So we're going to have some differences in there. So even if we say that it does work, if you don't implement it right, then you're just doing more damage than good. So we can provide as much as we can there to help make that decision. I just want to preface it with, there might be some gaps in it. There might be some gaps in, you want specifically this grade level in this program. Well, research might not be there around that outside of the vendor saying, oh yeah, it's a miracle, it's fantastic. So we have to be careful about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Teachers can answer those questions, or at least they need to be at the table to help answer those questions.
Yes. I go back to what Dr. Still said, quality instruction. Using that title matters in all of it. That's the instruction, that's the materials, it's all of it coming together. Dennis.
I'm really coming at it kind of from a different angle, because everything I'm reading is, I know that data is important. I know that quality instruction is important. Age appropriation is important, but there is unavoidable knowledge about physiological immaturity that screen time has brought forward to us, to recognize that children fall behind because of early exposure. I mean, I don't think that's an argument.
Question, yeah.
And I think we need to be, we can't be only looking at what educators see. We have to be looking at neuroscience. We have to be looking at the things that are actually documented from other professions or other disciplines. And I would just argue all day long about children need to be it's like the Amishman getting down the road to the same place, but he got there in a more, it took him longer, but he got there, and he maybe didn't have a lot of emotional stress because he took his time getting there. I mean, this is just a really important discussion, I think. And parents know their children. And I like the idea of educators being in the mix, because they see what happens when you're not at home. Parents see what happens at home. The doctor or the psychologist, whatever, that's working with a disturbed child, they hear things that nobody else hears. There's just so much information that needs to come forward. But one thing I'm pretty concrete. I mean, I'm setting concrete about the immaturity of the human brain not being able to tolerate some things. And I think that's what we're seeing in our culture with a lot of social unrest. Is there's been damage done.
Yep. There was a study performed in New Zealand. I think 6,000 or so students went through that, and they started in pre-K, and they followed them through 8 years old. They did see changes in social outcomes that were correlated with screen usage. But it's a correlation, right? It's limited, and it's one study. There are those studies that are out there that would point us in a direction. If that is sufficient for you guys to make a policy, you're like, that's a red flag right there. I'm going. We could provide that, and we're good with that. If others on the board are like, well, it's one study and it's only correlational, maybe we need a little stronger stuff, we're good with that too. Like, you need to tell us, I don't want to bring that one study to you and you say, that's it, let's go. I want you to be able to say what all is out there, what's sufficient, bring us more, bring us stuff that is a meta-analysis with a certain threshold. Maybe you guys won't go that far, but it is just know that you can ask us and keep asking us, and we can keep bringing as much as you need in order to make a decision.
Melanie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have too many notes. There's too much in this conversation. I come from a software background. Something that we do all the time when we are working on a project is, on a very regular cadence, we stop and go, okay, let's evaluate what we're doing. How are we doing? And we sit down as a team and we say, how'd the week go? Or how did the 2 weeks go? Or the month go? What should we start doing? What should we stop doing? Where do we need to do more or do less? And what are we doing that we want to just keep the same? It's really hard for me to think about the different things that your team could go and research. I tell people all the time, I want to look to the experts. As a board member, I want to look to the experts. I expect the experts to come and tell me, this is what you should be doing. This is what the board should be implementing. And so I wonder what we're not thinking about that we could be asking you for. As a parent with a kid still in school and one who has been for the last 8-9 years looking at the data that is available from my district, and every district is different because some districts do provide dashboards, logins, on your phone apps where you can modulate what your children have access to. I don't have that. But I know that there are a lot of different tools out there. So when I think about the tools that I have access to and the data that I can see, I know how much time is being spent in all of the various places. But the board doesn't know, and we don't know what it looks like across districts for different sets of kids. So I think that's one that I'm interested in because I know that that's data that already exists. I know too that when I look at that bill that says we're going to limit screen time, I know that that's really hard to do technically. So I guess my question for you is just really, how do we do better on the quality instruction front? Because I really want to lean into that. So what data is necessary to get us to a place where this board is asking the right questions, or maybe you guys are asking the right questions and bringing them to us, right?
Yes.
That's my question.
Have fun with that.
Well, I could share lived experience in KCK that we were concerned about screen time. We're concerned about the programs that we're spending money on. Are they actually having the impact that we want them to have? So we do have a research team in KCK. A lot of districts do not. Mm-hmm. They can't do that. We have a lot of tools in KCK that help us track these things. We have funds that can pay for those things. A lot of districts do not. And so it is varied, the tools that you have and how you spend that money. But we have that team, so we get to ask specific questions about it. Before we buy anything, we like to pilot. And we like to pilot multiple things, and our research team gets to evaluate those multiple things. We're in a unique position, though, as a school district. So I'd love to be able to better understand if KSDE has some of those capacities for school districts, that we could collect that data and maybe in partnership with the vendors that they are using to allow the vendors to help us help school districts make some of those decisions on screen time, on how it's being used, on what programs are being used, and how we might be able to leverage that to have real data coming in from school districts that don't have that capacity and or the finances to support it, that we can help in that way to feed that back to districts to really say, this is effective, this is not effective. So when we evaluated programs in KCK, we would report that back to the board to say, look, these are our findings. This is where we move stuff. Sometimes we went in the direction of the findings, and sometimes for other decisions we didn't. It was up to the school district, but that's one way, if we were to structure it, to pull those data points in to really do some of that work for school districts. I could see that being helpful, and also reporting that back to the board.
Yeah, that's a support in reality for them. Beryl?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Conrad. On Friday, I think I read a quote that you made quoting Dr. Steele, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But the quote.
Wow, okay.
So if I have to remember it on Friday, you may not remember.
This is a fun game.
But it really impacted me. And I believe what was quoted, whether it was you who quoted it or not, was that we are dealing with Tier 1 issues, but we're trying to solve them with Tier 2 resolutions. And it's not going to be effective. Am I too far off? It's not going to be effective until we resolve those Tier 1 issues. I see this as a Tier 1 issue. I feel that there is a level of urgency to resolve what we're seeing, how technology is impacting our students, but also how it can be applied very effectively in classrooms if it's done so appropriately. So you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you know, what kind of dirt is in the bathwater that you need to clean out so the baby can be healthy. And so what I would love to see is you bring what you're doing in KCK, give us some prescriptive recommendations that we can begin to move forward on, because the research is wonderful, and I do plan to go through and read this. I've seen some programs, very successful ones, for remediating students who had reading issues from elementary school that could catch up to grade level in high school. So, you know, I know there's good things that we can appreciate for our students through technology, but I also know there's a whole lot of junk. And do we have time to sift through the junk, or do we just need to figure out a way to shower that baby and bring in some fresh water that's going to help us solve the issue with immediacy, rather than taking a year and a half to look at things and then come up with something we can offer. So you see anything in your vision that would help us do that?
Before you answer, I'm sorry, I have to say this. We need a clip of everything she just said, and it needs to go viral, because that was beautiful.
This baby's been going through some mud. So there are a few things that we have been thinking about, again, early stages. And so, but within KCK, and I'm speaking from that perspective, I don't know what that looks like here at the agency yet. I start July 1. So we'll get there.
Hot seat's already hot, right?
But in thinking about it, we actually trying to get our hands around how many programs are actually within the district.
I would like to.
Really, really hard to do, even in just our district when we have control over it. But understanding what's even out there is really important. There's probably 9,000 plus programs out there. KCK doesn't use all 9,000, but we're not too far off from that. So we need to understand what's out there first and a method of collecting that information. I don't want to place more burden on the school districts.
Right.
That becomes very difficult. I'd rather place more burden on the tech companies that I know already store this data, and I'd rather force their hand to be a better partner in providing us the data we need to make a decision. There's probably a couple different levers that we can explore in doing that, but just my personal philosophy, knowing the work that goes on in a school district, and KCK is a larger one, we have more resources. I can't imagine smaller ones being able to pull it off like this. And we really need them involved as well. So I'd put more of the burden on tech companies who are already taking the data. Just give it back to us in a meaningful way so that we can do the work. And so those are just a few things that I think that we can explore, pulling those levers we can bring back to make sure that the burden's not on the school district, but we're able to make really solid decisions.
Ready?
Yeah, thank you. Now, I'm going to ask this from a perspective of disaggregating the data. Because I look at District 259, Wichita. And the concern, and let's talk about pandemic, one of the things that we found out was that there was a significant number of students who did not have the exposure to technology. There were more families who did not have access to the internet, kids who were not familiar with the technology. And so in my mind, when we hear of misuse of the devices, the one thing I wondered is, okay, it's like a new toy. You're giving this to these students who've never had exposure. We now find out all of these sites that we can see, all of the entertainment that you can do with that. And so in painting that picture, the question that came to my mind is those students who have had the exposure to this technology, how they advanced, how well they did, versus this significant number, and it is significant. I was surprised to hear of companies that were donating funds to help, not just in Kansas, but other states where the poverty level was so high that families could not afford internet. And so when people talk about kids on inappropriate sites, I don't know if there's a way that can be disaggregated so that you can see clearly those specifics that might be having an impact. I mean, to me, that's significant. That's something that I would think about. Does this apply to all, a majority, when you're looking at the tier levels? How many students, as they have become familiar with the technology and what they can do, start to lose interest? And I once used television as an example, where when it first came out, how people were glued to it. Now, really? So this is something I think that is really critical when you're looking at a decision-making process. But I don't know if coming up with that kind of disaggregate information is even possible, and maybe you can share that.
Yeah, note taken. Just wrote that down. Has anybody viewed anything online that they wanted to make before? Like I viewed a cake online and I'm like, dude, I'm going to make that. It's going to be great. And it doesn't turn out the way that it looks online. It's really not, it doesn't look edible. I've done that before. Cheesecake, it turned out not great, but online, it looked amazing. I think a lot of our programs that we talk about the ideal, this is what I have experienced. We talk about the ideal implementation of technology. Our students who don't have access to internet at home, our students that don't have computers at home, and the families that don't have computers at home, this is what a phenomenal opportunity for those families to be connected. This is going to be great. We actually, in KCK, we purchased plans for them, so it's a wireless device. They can take it home. Families can have access to this. And the ideal, yes, focused on equity, this is what we want. But then we look at what they do at home on those devices, and it's less than the ideal. It's not exactly what we had designed it to be in practice. Do some of them use it? Heavens, yes. And it's perfect. I don't want to take that away from anybody. But it's also understanding that the program coming to sell to you sells you the ideal. If you do this, you're going to raise reading scores. Mm-hmm. But rarely do we ever implement the ideal. It's very difficult to do that. And so is that where we want our teachers spending the time to navigate, or our tech spending the time to navigate, are we getting to the ideal? I think it's really important that we keep those in mind, but we solve for the tier 1. Those are more of those tier 2 supports. And how do we target that? How do we protect that? How do we control? Yes, don't forget that. But really the tier 1 that we're talking about here, can we get to that ideal? It's very difficult. In my experience, some school districts might be way better at it. But I think it's across the board. Just think about the technology that we use on our phones. I don't think we use our smartphones in the ideal state. I think AI maybe isn't always used. We're not solving cancer. We are actually crafting better emails, right? And so it's understanding that as well. That separating out the tier 1 and the tier 2.
Absolutely. Okay, we are up against a break, and here's my question, board. Do you want to have the motion? And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we want to do the motion to go into executive session now, take our break, come in, or come back? Because that's kind of an IT thing as well, because we'd have to come back online, do the motion, and then break again. So, okay. So let's go ahead and and we'll just build in the 10-minute break and come back in. Okay.
I'd like to volunteer to go to New Zealand on the behalf of the board to review that program.
Fully funded, right? Absolutely. Do we have is it in your packet? Did you pull it out of your packet? Because that's where Deborah would have put it, is in your actual folder. Okay.
If I was on AI, I could just get done.
I second the motion that these made.
Okay, let's see if I can do this. Executive Sessions Board, meeting date June 8th, 2026. I move that the board go into executive session for the following purpose: to consult with an attorney which would be deemed privilege and attorney-client relationship in order to protect the privilege and the board's communication with its attorney and legal matters. The following executive session will last no longer than, how many minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay.
Make it, what'd you say? 20? Okay, 20.
Make it 20, okay. And no action will be taken during this executive session. The following persons are invited to join the executive session: Commissioner Steele, Dr. Zach Conrad, Mark Ferguson, Scott Gordon, Deputy Commissioners Renee Nugent,
Pat Bone, and well, we got Zach, okay. And start time will be
So it's 3:13 now, so let's say 3:25.
3:25 p.m.
So we'll take our break and be ready to close doors at 3:25. Sorry, we're late, sir.
And we'll end at.
Did we get you on that list? Wasn't listening.
We'll end at 3:45 p.m.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? And I can't see Debbie, so if she's voting, I need to know. Jim, are you a yes?
I'm a yes.
Just check. Rayleigh, can you tell me if Debbie's on? Oh, she's got her hand up. Thank you. Oh, she's got a grandbaby. Okay, we are 9-0 vote to go in. Okay, take our break. We'll be back at 3:25. We are back from executive session. We are going to continue our agenda, which now is really just, we've heard all that we've heard. If we want to have, like, what other discussion we want to have in the mix of all of these thoughts that we're floating in at the moment. If nobody else has anything, I really want to sit in the area of quality instruction. I just really think that I don't know, it hit me not that long ago, but it was just like, to me, that's such the umbrella that this fits under so well. If it doesn't deliver quality instruction, it should not be used. And if you can't prove that it's actually moving the needle for the kids, then what are you doing? You know, because to me, we're in the middle of a mindset shift. And that's what I heard when we had McPherson before us. I've been in other districts with those conversations. And you're hearing, you know, we've heard it with the kindergarten teachers, from Wichita, from Clearwater. We've heard a lot of different things that districts are doing. And every time, to me, it came back to there's a rethinking that has to occur. And that takes a shift. I mean, that's a true shift from where we're at right now. But if we're umbrella that under, again, not trying to ban anything, not to be whatever, but we're pro-child, we're pro-education, what really makes a difference? What really drives good instruction? If the tool works, fine. But like it was pointed out with Dr. Conrad, like every one of those things that is being bought usually comes with a use this way for this length of time, for this much a week, you know, all the things. Well, is that happening? And it also has made me think about our at-risk list. One of the things that, you know, we know that on that list there's the things, but there's also, and I have not yet come up with the word, where districts can ask for, I want to use this thing, but in order for them to continue using it, they then have to prove that it actually worked. What is my word? Like, I haven't been able to find that word, but they can ask for the, maybe, like, so they as a district, it doesn't get put on the list, but they as a district say, we want to use this, we believe it will make a difference. So my understanding is then they're allowed to, but then they have to turn around at a certain length of time and say, okay, it did make a difference, or it didn't, and we're going to say, okay, you can't use it anymore. So under that idea of, is it working, how you're using it, and we've heard from I've had two, I don't know if I shared the one, but you know, we have the letter from the second grade teacher, and I greatly appreciate, I really do, I appreciate hearing what they're using, how it's not the gamified, that they're using certain things, and that's important, truly important. But my question is always going to be back, okay, but are you actually seeing change? Is it improving their outcomes? Are they learning? Like, we have to make sure we're thinking that way, and that's what I'm asking for. And to me, under that quality instruction of KISA, it fits so nicely in order to say, yes, we want to use it. And now how we do all of that, that's the big question mark. But to me, that quality instruction and quality materials just is a huge umbrella over the conversation of the tech. And then there's more conversations about the securities and the, you know, different things. Jim?
I want to follow up on the quality instruction, and that is, we need to hear the voice of teachers. And I think that it's really important to ask this question: how are you using technology to provide quality instructions? And the second question, what about technology is the barrier to you doing quality instruction? We need to answer both of those questions because they're the ones that are there every day. We're not. Mm-hmm. And that is a voice that needs to be heard. And there are a lot of people out there that can probably answer both of those questions, because there are those that really believe that it's a barrier, that it's in the way. Right. And we need to hear that voice. Yep. That voice is important. And there are those that are probably using it very effectively, but in a limited capacity. Right. And so, you know, I think those are important questions to ask and important information that we need.
I do want to point out, because Deborah copied this and everybody does have it, the title is What Happened After a Teacher Ditched Screens. So this is an article about a 7th grade math teacher in Colorado. It's a very recent happening. And I mean, to me, it's all the things. Like, he was all in 100% from the beginning, and then he was like, okay, I'm going to make an experiment on a whole month with no tech at all. And he never went back. So that says a lot. So to me, those are really important, and I really actually hope that I can get to him, because I would like to know, because that was just January when he did. I'd like to know where his, like, do you have the data to show what was the difference from when you did that to now? So just those different things. Danny? Because I could do a lot of talking about this.
Maybe we need to also hear from some parents, good and bad, about
Yeah.
technology also. I mean, I think.
And I have.
I think I have too.
I have.
But I think we need to make sure we
Yeah, 100%.
invite them to give their 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
Or $2 worth for whatever.
Whatever they got,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because I know on the one parent that I'm thinking of right now that I heard from, well, gosh, over a year ago, maybe a year and a half, they couldn't, I know we're talking lower elementary, could not get their child's reading something on paper. It was all in a device. And the child in that device just did not connect well. But she was constantly told, that's all we have. And I'm like, that is not a good answer. So there are some things out there that are a problem. Betty?
And I really appreciate what you're saying. However, and I'm one that's always got to look for the however. Not that I disagree. It's just food for thought, because there still are so many variables.
100%.
You know, you could say the 7th grade teacher. Well, how do we know that? Maybe because the 7th grade teacher got rid of devices that he became more energetic and into.
No, he actually says that.
You know, the way that. So I guess the problem that I have is we hear this. We do need to let it register, but we also need to be able to look at the possibility of a flip side, because we were elected by those that like technology and those that dislike technology. Right. And we have a responsibility to serve all of them.
Absolutely.
So as long as we're not just buying in and just saying, oh, this is, what do they say, the magic bullet? Or is
the
that
silver bullet, yeah,
silver
definitely
bullet.
not that.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the little grinder, but the I'm hungry. The silver bullet.
No, that's why I say quality instruction, Betty,
Yeah.
because if it works in that classroom with that teacher and they can make it work and see good outcomes, then absolutely.
Right. And I'm agreeing with you. As long as we emphasize
I don't
that,
want to come across saying that we should be. I am absolutely not there. Absolutely not.
Okay, thanks.
But that gives that ability for teachers to find the right thing. But I think we need the accountability piece of, is it really the right thing? Like, just because you're doing it doesn't tell us that it's good. What does tell us that it's good? Did you have some? Okay. Danny? And then Melanie?
Yeah, how do we define quality instruction?
Right.
I mean, what you think it is and what I think it is are probably completely different.
Could be, right. Just have to add more howevers in there, don't you? Melanie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, I'm going to say the things that I haven't been saying during this meeting. There are two, I think. When Dr. Short from ESU was speaking earlier, he hit on district leadership being the decision maker in at what age and stage a child might be exposed and have access to that device, which gets me to, can I read my own writing?
I know, it's a real problem for me too.
Yeah, I literally can't read it now. Which gets me to, how are those decisions being made, and what does training look like for those administrators?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're pushing it off of the teachers and saying that rests with leadership, cool, then let's talk about the leadership piece. Absolutely. Because I think that's a piece that we haven't touched at all. The other big one for me, you guys have heard me say it, but I'm going to say it again, is IT. Yes. What district IT looks like, what credentialing of those professionals looks like. Jim used the words earlier talking about different practices, and I think it applies in IT as well when you look outside of education and say, well, what would this job look like if I worked at a bank, if I worked at a software company, if I worked at the health department? Like, what does that look like? And by the way, if you work at the Kansas Health Department, there's a state level support there. So when I think about what IT looks like here at KSDE, I go very quickly to like child nutrition. So if you go out to the districts, everybody's got their own child nutrition program going on. Everybody's serving lunch, right? We have a whole staff here that helps support what that looks like.
Right.
So what is KSDE prepared to do now that we have a Doctors at Conrad? And what would support to districts look like? Is that something that we need to unpack on a much larger scale and say, how can we be supporting these districts that can't afford to go out and hire a 6-figure IT person and team to run everything, firewalls, making sure that their cybersecurity is tight and that they're protected both inside and out and that kids aren't being exposed to the wrong things. So I'm going to keep beating that drum.
That one has to keep being.
We have to fix this IT situation.
Yeah, the security is a huge part. And we heard that from our sheriff detective.
Yes.
You know, the internet crimes against children are doing nothing but escalating crazily, and it is coming from school-issued devices as well. So we have to look at that hugely, because there's the education piece, then there's the online safety piece, and they're all very important. Did you have something else, Danny?
Oh, there's a whole bunch in there.
Oh, I know.
Heard from Zach about, the technology people have all the information. Well, I don't like that they have all the information, because what are they going to do with it? Obviously, I think it was $56 million, actually, our legislature got from technology companies that they were getting information from them. I think that's the right number. I have to go back. Yeah, 56 million that our legislature has received from technology companies, getting information from them.
Getting information.
So I'm very concerned with outside sources having all the information.
I know, but that's where the security is a big deal. We're going to need you to back up that number. I can see her face.
Okay. I will find it at home. It's in one of my stacks of paper.
I got lots of those.
AI can't find it for me. No.
Oh, gosh. Anybody? Debbie, go for it.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So let me get that hand down. I just wanted to echo what Danny said. I also heard Dr. Conrad talking about the data that's already there. They already have it. And I'm like, that didn't sound like anything I'd heard anybody just say before.
It's real.
And so I was kind of hoping that was more in-house apps that I was hearing him say, but I just want to echo that Danny's concerns that if we're saying that all these companies do have this data already, I understood his point in making it work for us, but it's really, I'm personally not a person uncomfortable with data being out there. My DNA's out there. I got all that, but I just know that parents are so concerned about that right now. So therefore I am.
Yeah, it's more and more of a thing, that's for sure. Keep it coming. If you got them, go for it. Did everybody get the article as well that says states don't ban ed tech, do this instead? I just want us to be, because I want to really get the word out there. Like, we are not looking to ban technology. That's not our role. And I don't think it's the right thing anyway. It is very much about quality instruction and materials. So finding the right lane through that, I think, is our important process. And yes, probably need to have some definitions behind quality instruction. Like, what does that look like and actually mean? And I think that's where our commissioner and our agency can, definitely help us, because KESA's already looking at it. So what does that look? And we'll have Dr. Scott before us some point in time in this meeting. So, we in the next 2 days, so we can talk to him too about, like, let's make sure we're understanding what we're looking at, because I'm sure there's still a process going on as KESA continues to be built out of what all that looks like. But these are important things, and I hope we can all take some serious time and all the things, because I have quite a pile just for today, let alone what's sitting in my piles at home and on my screen that's open with a million windows because I'm afraid to close them that I will lose them. So anything else? Because if we're done and we just need to digest, that's completely fine, and we can adjourn our work session, and then we'll be in our regular meeting starting tomorrow morning. So tell me where you're at.
Yeah, I'm concerned because
Yeah, next. So I guess we
when
need
they
to talk about-
mentioned the World Health Organization.
I know that was interesting. But he's just giving us information.
I
mean,
understand, but when they're talking, that they want all the, that makes my brain go right to they want all the kids to think the same globally.
I know.
That's where my mind goes, and that scares the crap out of me.
I hear you. So on next steps, what do we want to see for our next conversations, looking at maybe, next month? Betty?
I still am focused on something Melanie said, which I thought was really interesting, and I guess I'm tied into specifics. But the example that you used of your daughter who you weren't happy with the YouTube, but you were happy with
the video,
what she was doing. And so that's kind of like, let's see, how does that go? I get him, shoot the message, but not the shoot somebody.
Shoot
messenger
somebody.
in the
Yeah. Which,
yeah, I mean, and that was so significant in and of itself.
Right.
It's not that you were against the fact that she was able to navigate, figure it out, that part that you loved. And so for me, I'd like to see a way of how do you separate this.
Mm-hmm.
It was the fact that she had to use the venue of YouTube, which is
right.
full of ads.
Oh my gosh, that's so bad. Yeah. So distracting.
Things that are bothersome, but it wasn't what she was able to do with it. And to me, there is a lot of significance in that, because I think you probably tapped into a huge concern that most families have. It isn't that there's not good, it's trying to separate.
It's the things that can come with it.
Yeah,
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And that was critical.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that back up.
Thanks for noticing that, Betty, because you're absolutely right. It's about what children are exposed to in different platforms. Another good example is Zello. Some districts are using that as part of, they're literally using it to check the box for IPS and say, we put our kids on Zello, therefore they have an individual plan of study. In Zello, you fill out a survey about what your interests are and what you're good at. I'm guessing because I haven't actually done it. But it then puts you in a feed. And as you scroll through the feed, it's showing you different jobs. And I noticed that it's serving a lot of TikTok videos. And as a parent, I was horrified, but also relieved that my district had blocked TikTok. So when they clicked on the TikTok video, they did not get to the video. The content that lives in these apps, and especially on YouTube, you see it even when you walk into an elementary classroom and they're using YouTube to show a video, the ads aren't filtered.
Right.
Those kids get served all kinds of ads while they're right there in class. And then you've got all of the videos that are being recommended right there as well. And that's content that, as a parent, speaking totally as a parent right now, that's stuff that I don't want my little kids to see.
Right, right. And the thing with Zello that I've come to understand too, and there's probably other programs, there's a chat piece. And this was a parent telling me, and so it has to be turned on, but I think it's at whatever grade level that it comes with. So maybe your upper grades, but that it allows them to chat with somebody from a college. Who's somebody, right? Their ambassador, like, well, you have no idea who that is and where that connection goes. So there's things that are built in that maybe the school's not, I don't know. But there's so much within each one of those things that we have to be so cautious of. And we need that IT cybersecurity piece that's really focused on those kinds of things.
And one other thing, too, that I will point out, especially in talking with IT technology people in buildings, their focus is build a foundation where you teach responsible use. One of the things that I noticed when they were doing, and it was a particular class that my daughter was taking, how to determine what's valid information versus invalid. And, I was so fascinated. I was supposed to be observing to see that she was paying attention. I got so involved that I didn't notice that she had drifted off. But that was significant because even the .com, .org, .gov, .edu, that there was a lot, if you teach kids how to use it responsibly, they know whether this is a valid site, that this has credibility versus garbage. And I was thinking, had I not been listening in on that class, I never would have known that there was such a being that teaches them responsible use. And so to uplift that and to push that as important, where you understand, because as we migrate more toward AI, that's going to be even more critical. How do you determine whether this is valid or not? I saw something, and it may not be valid, where some person felt badly about an illness and sent out $400,000 to a person that didn't even exist. How do you know that that's valid versus not?
Right.
Same way with kids thinking they're communicating with another kid. How do you know that's valid and not?
And that's the education piece.
It would be
in that,
great
yeah.
to have more emphasis placed on teaching them how to use this responsibly and how to, I don't even know if there's a way that you can detect.
Yes. Well, I think it's in the verbiage. I think there are ways, yeah. In the way, especially if you're talking about a groomer, like in the way they communicate. And yes, that education piece of that online world is super important. Did you have something, Danny? Go for it. Well, just jump in.
Yes, okay, so that's fine. We teach them how to use it responsible, but what's the accountability? What's going to happen if you don't use it responsibly in the school? So that's putting something else on teacher that they have. Okay, so if you can't use a computer anymore because you didn't use it responsibly, because you were on X-rated whatever.
No.
So
that's not what I was saying, though. I was talking about how you can, when
you
I
can
say
teach them
responsible,
okay.
it's buying into a message. So I think you hit .com and I was on .org.
I disagree. We can.
What do you disagree?
I doubt if we can teach them how to do it responsibly, because, and I know I'm an old fart. I understand that, but this thing is going so fast, and it's going to change. It's changing faster than we can keep up with it.
Well, I would just say that the sheriff detective that was here in front of us spoke specifically about education, because we cannot law enforce our way through this to protect kids. So the education piece must be there.
Yeah.
So I don't understand what you're disagreeing with.
So in the schools, if we're gonna teach them the proper way to use it, I know I'm one of those students that's going to know how to not use it right.
Understood. You're not going to get 100%.
And if I'm using it in school wrong, because I don't believe you can put all the IT stuff in there where they can't get to it, but somebody's going to figure out how to do it.
Because
But we
kids
still
kids are that smart on
But we
the
still
other
have
side.
speed limit signs even though people
Yeah,
break
I
the law.
don't use them, so it's okay.
That doesn't mean we don't do it. It means we do the best we can, and yes, there will always be those who won't. That's
And
true.
I'm taking the opposite point of view on purpose.
I
So
know,
we
you like to be a
we need to be
turkey that
talking
way.
about all that stuff.
Oh, okay,
Madam Chair.
yes.
One of the things. Look, I can anyway. One of the things that I heard us talk about, if we could just clean
Yes.
this up a little bit, is we wanted to hear from, and we mentioned teachers, and we mentioned parents. And again, I'm not saying we're doing it yet, but I would wonder if we could have perhaps the Department of Ed show us what it would look like to do a survey, or if there's a different mechanism by which the board wants to hear from them. One of the things I've heard a lot from the board is we do want to hear from these groups.
Mhm.
One option was if we looked at doing a survey in the fall, what would that be? What would be the burden? I don't want to say what that is, but I just want to kind of clarify. We've talked a lot about we want to hear from. Do we want to do more than invite them to come to the board? Is there another way we want to
Right,
get to that,
right.
to those groups? So
Yeah, that's a good, thank you. That's exactly what we need.
I would just piggyback on what Dr. Jake said. Yeah, you know, special ed teachers have a heavier load, I think, in some ways because they do a lot of coaching one-on-one and stuff. And I recently had a conversation with IT really helps me with that.
Sure.
So maybe that is a way of district saving money and you know and cuts into the need for the personnel. So that may be part of a survey, whatever, if districts could give us some kind of an idea if the programs they use actually improve that struggle that they have with special ed.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. So with Doug.
So also, we haven't talked, there's taxpayers involved here. So there's one school district that just spent $97,000 for the little bag for the phone for their school district. And that school board member was here. That's what he just told me. So, because that does the cell phone thing, takes care of that. Well, maybe there's a better way than spending $97,000 of taxpayer money of doing it. I know we're going to hear from Frank about that particular law too, so there may be some other ways. Or at least one school district is jumping so far forward, they're spending $12 million on screens for one. Another school district spent $600,000. So are we being real good with taxpayer dollars? And the more and more things that we're putting in place, so we have administrators now that have to fill out all this stuff crazy stuff that goes on here. And so we have the politicians now talking about we're spending all this money on administration. Well, right now and I'm a business guy, so it's supply and demand. You know, it's hard to find superintendents, so a superintendent can maybe ask whatever he wants to get paid for local school districts because there's a shortage of them. So those are just all things that are in my head that drive me crazy about all, because we may be talking about screens and AI and all of those things, but it all works together where the locals are just jumping and spending $97,000 or $12 million or $600,000 and just jumping instead of
better
doing what we're doing, having a discussion and coming up. And I'm not saying I'm right on anything, but those are just things that are out there. And I'll go back to the same thing. I've been in 88 buildings, and I've been in a lot of classrooms, and it's completely different. You can have 2 second grade classes right here. I'll go in one that they're not using the screen or the boards or whatever, and it's a whole different atmosphere than when I go into one and everybody's on the screen, nobody's talking, the teacher's up on, I mean, it's a whole different atmosphere.
Yeah, and that's where that quality instruction really does play a piece.
And to me, that really.
Yeah. So with what Dr. Steele was asking of us, do we want to ask him, the agency, to start to craft the idea of a survey for teachers, for parents. What does that look like? How would we want that to get out there? When you think about parents, what does that look like? Is that just on the KSDE website? Is that on social media? Like, how are we going to try to do that? So is that what we're doing? I want to make sure he understands what we're asking of him. Yes, Jim?
I think, yeah, that's fine, but I think maybe the better question would be to ask them to recommend to us how's the best way to communicate. Because I can assure you that when I was a superintendent, and I don't like to talk about, it's been 11 years since I've been in that chair, so I'm sure it's changed. And anybody, by the way, that tells you they're an expert because they taught 5 years ago doesn't know what they're doing.
Right. Very different.
So maybe, I know I used to get surveys every day. Now, if they came from the department, I paid more attention. But
Yeah.
I got surveys, sometimes multiple every day. Yeah, survey, let's talk about how to do that, but let's also ask them to give us maybe other suggestions about how we can communicate.
Okay.
That may not be that. Let's not limit it just to one.
Correct.
Yeah. And I would say, I like that idea.
Yeah.
I'd like for him to bring us some suggestions or recommendations. Because that's the only way that we're going to be able to
Go ahead. I just
represent
all groups.
all voices, and not just
Absolutely.
what we personally feel, but what it is that Kansans want from us. So I like the idea.
Great. Debbie?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The thing I'd like to see is going back to Dr. Short, his comments on methodology. He said in the negative, but I would say it in the positive. And I liked Jim's idea of talking to the teachers. What could we reasonably have happen without technology? So I'd like to hear from the teachers, what can be reasonably be done without technology, and try to set maybe that as that kind of goal, that line, that curriculum thing or whatever. In the survey, maybe the teachers could weigh in on that. I'd like to hear from parents. What do the parents think can be reasonably done for their kids' education without technology? And so trying to set the bar as close to that as possible.
So literally ask for their suggestions on the solution behind all of it, is what I'm hearing you say. Does that make sense? Like we're asking for their proactive.
His methodology.
Yeah.
The methodology of it. I quoted it, what could not reasonably happen without technology?
Right.
And I put it to the positive, what
Right.
could reasonably happen without technology?
Yes. Yes, that's good. Okay. Anything else? Oh, so what do we want to do meeting-wise? Do we want to throw something in virtually in whatever time frame? Do we want to extend our next meeting, which I would request it be extended into Wednesday, not early before because of my world. So, because I'm actually going to take a vacation. So, but what do we want to do? I mean, I do like the idea of when we're here adding on. It's just easier for all the things. I think it's easier on staff. I mean, all the things too. So do we want to plan on a longer day on Wednesday in July and have a couple of hours set aside at the end to say we're going to continue this conversation?
Is it possible that, and I don't know what's pressing that has to be presented next month. I just wondered if there's something where you could just put that in where we set aside some time for a discussion during the meeting. Again, I don't know what needs to be presented, but if it's something that could be put off or delayed until the following month, and maybe we do it that way and just look at that as an agenda item where we have that discussion led by
Okay,
the
so
commissioner.
for July, just add it to the agenda to hear from the department on what are you thinking around
their
how we
recommendations
can get
and
that. And then wait till August to have that more
Yeah.
like this today.
Yeah, I think.
Getting nods, getting good? Okay.
I'd be okay to have another Monday,
Yes, yeah,
like in
like
July.
this.
Have a Monday before
Okay,
the board
that's
meeting.
not what she's asking
I
for.
understand, I'm just.
I
giving you-
can't do Monday before the board meeting in July. So, but we can talk about adding to the agenda in July on Wednesday or whatever part of and make it long enough that we're actually able to have more discussion. Probably not as big as this, but definitely, because we have to continue the conversation. Melanie?
I just had an idea. It's kind of out of left field, and it's not related to scheduling. But I wonder if we could find a district that would be willing to perhaps pilot something that's low tech. I'll just leave that there. But it'd be neat to hear
And
about
maybe
that.
we need a district to step up and say, hey, that's what we're doing. Let me tell
Already.
you what we're, yeah.
Or planning for, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
If you do that, you need to do a small district, medium, and a large.
If we can find them.
You can't compare.
Yeah, yeah, if we can find them. So, calling all districts.
Actually.
If you're doing something like that, we really want to hear from you.
And actually, hopefully, we've stirred the pot up enough.
Yeah.
Where each of our districts, we're hearing from parents, teachers, administrators within our districts that are calling us or emailing us. Hopefully, we've stirred the pot up enough to do that. Hopefully. And which will be interesting if how many people actually pay attention to this.
Yeah. So KSDE's Great Ideas Conference is the end of July. Could we, and I'm sure we could, strong arm somebody into probably Pat Bones, say, can we get a designated time and a room and invite whoever's at the conference to say, not that we're trying to compete with anything else, but find a time and say, we're going to be in here, come talk to us.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, so talk to Miss Pat and see if she can find us a spot. And, we can be present. I intend to be there for it all. And then we can really just be physically, come talk to us and see if we can make that happen. Jim?
This is petty, but if we are going to meet, if we ever meet again on Monday, and we're here anyway, why can't we start much earlier on Tuesday?
Okay. Okay. We can consider that. I'm looking at, so when you say much earlier, are you saying like start at 9 a.m. instead of 10? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, Danny and I'd be here at 6.
I know you would.
Yes, some of us have an hour drive.
Yes, there are several who do that. So, but yes, so if we're going to do that in August, let's already start thinking that way. I'm assuming we can change our calendar if need be, because we did take a vote at some point accepting our schedule. So I want to make sure we're not doing something untoward if we need to actually take a vote on that to preempt the previous vote. I don't know. I just want to make sure we're following rules, so to speak.
That's a lawyer question.
But yes, let's look at that for August. So let's tentatively plan on the Monday before the August meeting. And then we'll talk in July for sure about what start time Tuesday would be then. Okay? Okay. Nice. Nice. Thank you, everybody. I think we will adjourn our work session. We will be back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to start our regular board meeting. And appreciate everybody who was before us and everything that we've heard. I think it's been pretty good stuff. So I'll adjourn the work session. There it is.